asks us to do something that we view make us uncomfortable because we can't see the future, right? We can only see the past. That's when, like kids, we talk back because we may feel, look, I'm thirsty. How you figure I'm supposed to walk? See what I'm saying? And we rationalize things in our mind because he is thirsty. Brother Kirk was like, he probably dehydrated. So in his mind, that's a logical response, right? Just like when a kid talked back. Now, in a time past in society, when a kid talked back, what would be the first reactionary response from a child? This time gone. But usually there was a time where almost as fast as a hummingbird wings can flap, the parent will front or back slap the kid in the mouth. And why did you hit them in the mouth? Because you could have hit them anywhere on the body. Because you're trying to get them to understand this. See, these two things. See? So that they would understand there is no back response, just one way communication. That's old school parenting, not two-way. See? And now people say, I want my child to be able to express themselves. Older people never understood nothing about expressing yourself, right? Older people dressed you, fed you what they don't know gluten, or if you got allergies, eat this. See? So that time is gone now. We passed that time, right? We in 2022. So this is, you could have talked back like Job. Remember Job was little talking back? Remember Abraham with the angels? He's little talking back, right? He said, well, I know y'all know a little more than me, but just saying, hypothetically, what if we found a couple people, well, how much of 50 people, right? See, little talking back, right? So go to Zarephath, which belongs to Sidon, and dwell there. See, I have commanded a widow there to provide for you. Widow? Is she rich? This don't sound like a good thing. If I'm alive, this don't sound like a good thing coming to me. But okay, I'm going to go. So he arose, went to Zarephath, and when he came to the gate of the city, indeed, a widow was there gathering sticks. All right, I don't see nothing yet, no pomp and circumstance. He called to her and said, please bring me a little water in a cup that I may drink. And as she was going to get it, he called to her and said, please bring me a morsel of bread in your hand. Now, let me pause for a second, right? Morsel is an old English word. We don't really talk like that. But if I was already hungry from wherever I came from, when you travel and you get somewhere, somebody greeting you and you thinking, I need to eat. Like, I'll see the sights later, but I got to eat on the way to the hotel, right? What if somebody was like, we just grab a little morsel? You thinking, no. Look, I'm not going to smile at no photo until I'm looking for local eats, right? Like as soon as you land on vacation, I need a plate of whatever they eat now, right? Well, he's just asking for a little morsel. Okay. Bring it where? In your hand. Well, no offense, but most women's hands small. How much pizza could fit in a woman's hand? What about two hands? You got any other hands? Again, this don't sound like an abundance for somebody who is supposed to be God's man, correct? Like, keep in mind, Elijah didn't do anything wrong here. Okay, then she said, as the Lord your God lives, I do not have bread. What? Only a handful of flour. Okay, stop. What am I supposed to do with flour when I'm hungry? Imagine if you were hungry and somebody say, here go ingredients. You would be like, is this a TikTok joke video? What is this? What can I do with this, right? So just keep this in mind from him. And a little oil in a jar, and see, I'm gathering a couple sticks that I may go and prepare it for myself and my son, that way we may eat it and die. Think about Thanksgiving. People be starting Thanksgiving prep on Monday. When it get Thursday and you wake up, you smelling the food, and for the non-cooks, what are you thinking? Man, I don't want to say nothing, but my goodness, what time of food gonna be ready? So imagine you just getting there and somebody just putting a turkey in. You can say, we never gonna eat. I know how long it takes to cook a turkey. You just now getting sticks to make a turkey? I came over here, thought you've been preparing since last night. Remember, the man was already hungry and thirsty from where he came from. Now I gotta wait for her to finish grabbing sticks, then make food. And now it sounds like I gotta be at the wrong house, because what's the situation of her house? They on their last leg. So I gotta call God back, because the GPS must have been wrong. This can't be where I was supposed to go. Because how's she going to feed me if they about to have their last supper? See how logically you can think to yourself, this must not be right. All right, let's see what happens. For thus says the Lord God of Israel, Elijah said to her, verse 13, do not fear. Go and do as you have said. Make me a small cake from it when? First, bring it to me, and afterward make some for yourself and your son. For this says the Lord God of Israel, the bin of flour shall not be used up, sounds like a miracle, nor shall the jar of oil run dry, sounds like a miracle. When? Until the day the Lord sends rain on the earth. So she went away, did according to the word of Elijah, and she and he and her household ate for many days. The bin of flour was not used up, nor did the jar of oil run dry, according to the word of the Lord, which spoke by Elijah. Last week, several comments touched on this, right? Because it looked at both sides, because faith was on both sides. Elijah had to believe what he heard from God to tell her, because the situation sounds bad. And she had to believe from Elijah, who she don't know from. Old people used to say, a hole in the wall. I don't know you. And why in the world, if this is my last bit of oil and flour, would I make you a cake first? Do that make any sense? Some things in the Bible, when you look at, if you take faith away, don't make any sense. See, don't be afraid, because sometimes when our friends and family ask us, and we be surprised when they don't understand, it's because faith. If you don't have faith of certain things, it's not going to make sense. Somebody can say, well, that don't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense for a stranger to come to me and ask me, hey, give me a little bit of bread in your hand and a cup of water. And I say, actually, I'm just gathering this up to make a last meal so me and my son could die. And the stranger say, make me a cake first. That doesn't make sense. But she had enough faith in what he was saying. Now, let's just analyze her faith. If you're down and out, usually when you have some illness, life works this way. And the doctor says, listen, there is some treatment that hasn't been verified yet. And you've exhausted all the other options. What do a lot of people say? I don't even got to hear the rest. I'll try it. Why? Because you feel like you have nothing to lose, right? Sometimes that is how life works, correct? Like if you have a terminal illness and someone says, listen, we're doing trial testing, a lot of people volunteer. Why? Because I have a terminal illness, right? So like if this works, praise God. If it doesn't, I'm not going to blame the treatment, right? Because I already know I have a terminal illness. So when we look at it logically, remember the whole class, we're supposed to be looking at these situations logically. She don't have anything to lose, because if you're starving to death and you have one last meal, I have to be honest with you, the last meal, is it going to do something? No, because it's not even something good. You know how death row, they ask you, what's your last meal? You say, I want macaroni and cheese and jerk chicken or oxtail and lobster, right? Just as the last meal. But I have to be honest, like a flour, cake, and oil, I'm like, I'm good. I might as well just die. Because me, I don't eat like that. I just like what I like, or I'd rather not eat. So to me, I'd have been like, you can have this cake. Because to be honest, I was only making this cake for my son because I don't want this flour cake. I'd rather just die. So sometimes when your back is against the wall, instead of looking at your surroundings, look up to God, because you have nothing to lose anyway. Correct? You already exhausted all your logical options, right? So sometimes you got to think to yourself, you know what? I don't have anything to lose. So if God is telling me to try something else, why not? That's where change comes in. You've been looking at this world however you've been looking at it to this point. Economically, spiritually, physically, and emotionally. Let's pick emotionally. When you go to a therapist, all he or she is trying to get you to do is to look at the same situations differently. See? That's it. When you take a test in school and you do usually math, very rarely do you do the test and go home and say, I failed it. Most of the time you think, what? I did a good job. But then you get an F, and aren't you surprised? You're thinking, how is that the wrong answer? The teacher wants you to relook at the same problems, right? In a different way. When we look at every day the exact same way, with the same response, the same attitude, the same frame of mind, that creates a cycle. Now we left the Bible. We just in therapy session now. Just therapists will tell you this. And if I put a hamster on a wheel, do the hamster ever get any traction? No. Now they running a lot, but will they ever make it from this door to the back door if I got them stuck on a wheel? The hamster would have to leave the familiarity of the wheel and get out of the wheel. Then the little legs are run right down this road, and all the girls and ladies in here, and the men will beat y'all out the door, right? But until the hamster changes, because I got to change my perspective. Because when I'm running a wheel, I just see metal. I got to look out. Wait, hold up. Then I got to step out. Then I can run. Some of us are stuck emotionally on a treadmill of life only because we won't step off. I'll give you an example. Past August, I was in Belize with my friend. Now in Belize, if you go out about 1.5 miles, the water only come up to your chest if you're about as tall as me, because they have the second biggest coral reef in the world. So literally, you just 1.5 miles is perfect, right? You just walking. One of my friends is just a couple inches smaller than me, but he can't swim. So he step out and start drowning to death. You know what I told him? Stand up. Just rise yourself up, and what will you notice? Oh, I'm not even moving. He almost killed himself. That's how life works. Sometimes we just need to get up. You don't want to stand up. You be, and people walking by like, what are you doing? Like, I literally was confused. Like, he tall as me. Get up. The guy told you, bro, we could just walk. There's no ways to fish. It looked like we in the tub. What do you, almost died. And what we would tell his mom that he drowned. She'd say, what? In Belize, and they even got waves. How did he drown? Well, we told him stand up. He just kept drinking the water. That's how life works. Some of us drown to death, and people be like, why you don't just block that person, right? Just block them. Then we change the name to do not answer, and you still answer. And somebody say, why you don't just stand up? No, get a new phone number right here. Do it make sense? You think no? Because unlike the hamster and like my friend, we refuse to look at the same water different. Just you look, say, you know what, you're right, let me just stand up. And when the brother stood up, and after he stopped spitting up, he realized what? He wasn't drowning to death. You see? Now the rest of us like, so there you go. Now he got back in the boat because now it's traumatic, because once we realized he was alive, if you can know my personality and multiply that by my friends, what do you think started happening next? We start laughing because I was only not laughing because I thought you was going to die. But once you came back to life from the dead, I have to laugh because the circumstances were common, right? Sometimes that's what happens to us in life. That's why I said, let's start emotion. Right now, that happens to us physically, that definitely happens to us spiritually, and it happens to us financially. Financially is how people have a term called what? This generational wealth. Generational wealth means that you replicate the same concept, but generational poverty is also a term, because poverty is a frame of mind. I told you weeks ago, when you raise in a certain culture, right? Like Southern Black culture is this. No matter how much money you got in the bank, when you leave the house, now again, this is old, because now people walk outside with house shoes and people be in pajamas at the airport. I'm not from that era. I'm from the era when you left the house, what did older people say? It don't matter if we were on WIC. How was your presentation from an older Black Southern mindset? Even if we have to go to next door and ask for sugar, how are you supposed to present yourself? This is long gone. You need to dress, correct? I need to shower, wipe the cold out my eye, brush my hair, and put some clothes. Even if I got to rewash the same outfit at night, dry it and wear it in the same. But see, nowadays I go to the store, people got house coats on. House coat. People don't even know what a house coat is anymore. House shoes, right? Because people don't talk that way. But there was a time where you would not present to the world your inside look. You see what I'm saying? But now people in this society have no shame. When you have no shame, you have no embarrassment. And when a society have no embarrassment, we have a danger zone. See? Because now I don't care what my presentation is to the world. That's how people go to jobs and they wear whatever they want. Then we want the job to say, hey, you should hire me regardless of what I wear. Let me help you with that. You have things called a gatekeeper. And in this world, the gatekeeper is never going to let you wear what you want to wear at a job. Now, that's a fact. Now, you can rally and cry and hashtag as much as you want, but the people who really control this world financially, they never going to agree to that. You know why? Because that's a different culture for theirs. And since they're in charge, why would they let you wear whatever you want to wear? Plus, let's think about it logically. If people start coming to work wearing whatever they want to wear, when will it stop? I'll give you an example. We had a dress down day at my previous job. And one day this dude came in with shorts, thigh was out, and flip-flops. Toes was out. Now we have a problem because someone got to say something to him. But in his mind, it was dress down. Well, sweetheart, we didn't mean dress that down. You almost at the beach clothes. Why not show your stomach neck? Take your shirt off then. Where will it stop? You see my point? So when we're looking at these things, think about it from, again, a logical standpoint, which is why we have standards, right? Now, go back to a spiritual sense. This is why you have standards. This is why God set up some standards. Now, Elijah is who we're following the story. Notice we left the people. God only knows what's happening to the people because the drought is going on. But the blessing is once Elijah and the young woman, and of course her son was the benefactor, once they were doing what God asked them to do, for many days, somehow, some way through God's graces, that flour and the oil didn't dry up. Now, let's speak to different personalities. The way that I am now with food is different than I was as a kid. As a kid, I like eating the same exact thing all the time, right? Because as a kid, you raise a child with structure for familiarity, right? You go to bed at this time. Friday, you get pizza. Thursday, you may get egg salad sandwich. Wednesday, you get peanut butter and jelly. Tuesday, you may get oodles and noodles. But as an adult, Ellis, I don't even finish food at a restaurant. And when they be like, you want to take that? I'll be like, I don't want to eat. I don't like eating leftovers. So eating this same flour cake every day, I would have been like, man, I mean, I'm thankful because it's not raven meat. But just saying, if you have the ability to make the flour multiply, any way you could make a beef patty multiply, maybe just tomorrow, just surprise me with a beef patty. Any way I could get a lobster tail. I'm just saying, because it don't seem like work for you, right? Seem like you able to do the miracles, right? See how we won't be content. See? So when the Bible starts talking about seek first the kingdom, your Father in heaven know you need all these things. That's how when we start saying, you know, God just, you know, we do like this, testing this thing out. Sometimes we pray like that. Hello, echo, you up there? Because I was asked for something last week. I didn't see no response. I went to church. I gave $25 instead of $20. I didn't see no response. I just was, you know, sometimes you hit somebody back like in work, what they say in the email, just circling back. What that mean? Like, that mean this. Hello, you with us? You just, that's a nice way to be like, yo, my man, just circling back. Just wanted to, because I had sent that email last week and it's this week. Did the week change? Yeah, but I didn't get a response. Did you hit reply all? Maybe it's in draft. See, sometimes we feel like, oh God, I know it's a lot of people here, right? You say, oh, I could only imagine your hands full with Ukraine and COVID. I just go respectfully. I just was saying, because last Sunday I had put that prayer request in. I'm sure a lot of people pray it because, you know, Ukraine and Russia and COVID. But I just was saying, can you bless me with, and God said, I gave you that rice cake. You say, you know, I mean, the rice cake was cool. That was last week though. We in a new week. I got to eat the same rice cake. See how we get? Because we won't be content. Now, God is doing a miracle. Remember when I was reading, I stopped and said, sound like a miracle. After a while, though, the miracles aren't impressive to us, right? Because it's the same miracle, right? So after you wake, I can imagine when a baby first wake up, they probably be like, I done woke up. Just imagine you dream for the first time, because you can't remember that stage in your life. Imagine a baby walk for the first time. The parents be happy, but what the baby be thinking? Child, I'm walking. But what about now? You think, I don't even want to get out the bed. I don't want to go. Because after a while, the same blessing, the same miracle becomes too mundane. You know what we treat like that? It's Lord's Supper. Every week we do Lord's Supper. First time you took Lord's Supper, you probably was like, well, I can't even imagine that Jesus came down from heaven and died on a cross for me as much as I sinned. After 3,000 Lord's Suppers, you thinking, man, I wonder what time, if it's going to be a line at Drumstick when we get out of here. Huh? Because you already passed that, right? Interaction with humans work that way, right? You as a kid ask for something, and you know how a parent be like, no, we don't got no money. We don't got no money. And you come down Christmas and you got it. Then after a while, what? You start demanding gifts. And when the parent be like, no, really, we don't have money this time. You thinking, where's the thing I asked you for? You see what I'm saying? Because things become a routine and you no longer value those things as a blessing. Never treat God that way. Right? Every day you wake up, especially in this time period we live now, is a blessing from God. It's an opportunity today, right? On this day to do something with that blessing. So this is how they looked at it. All right, next verse, 17. Now it happened after these things that the son of the woman who owned the house became sick. His sickness was serious, so serious that there was no breath left in him. Then she said to Elijah, what have I to do with you, O man of God? Have you come to me to bring my sin to remembrance and to kill my son? And he said to her, give me your son. So he took him out of her arms and carried him to the upper room where he was staying. He laid on his own bed. Then he cried to the Lord and said, O Lord, my God, have you also brought the tragedy on the widow with whom I lodged by killing her son? And he stretched himself out on the child 3 times. And he cried out to the Lord, said, O Lord, my God, I pray, let this child's soul come back to him. Then the Lord heard the voice of Elijah, and the soul of the child came back to him, and he revived. And Elijah took the child and brought him down from the upper room into the house and gave him to his mother. And Elijah said, see, your son lives. Then the woman said to Elijah, now, by this I know that you are the man of God, and that the word of God, of the Lord, in your mouth is true. Now, as much as I don't like eating leftovers, if I seen somebody raised from the dead, I can assure you, I would eat a flour cake every single day for the rest of my life, because I have always viewed that as a big miracle. That's just me. Like when I read somebody dead and all of a sudden the boy get up, I would have been like, just like she said, now I know. Now we should have had that now I know from the miracle from the bread, correct? Was that not a miracle, every day able to eat? But see how that became routine. But when she seen her son come back to life, then she came to a upper level of faith. Let's end how we started. Some things in your life will help sustain your faith to get you to a certain point. But you always have to level up your faith. Don't plateau, right? Don't stay the same as a faith. Always increase every day, every month, and definitely every year, right? So that some things in your life will bring your faith to the next level. See what I'm saying? This was a life experience that brought her faith to the next level. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were in a time period where they were under occupation. And somebody had the bright idea to say, hey, let's build this big statue, and at a certain time of day, make everyone bow down and worship the statue. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego already had a faith level at that point, which means it came from experience to say, that's not going to work for me. And the decree was, if you don't bow down, we're going to throw you in this fiery furnace. You know what they said? That's still not going to work for me. And they said, well, you about to go into the furnace. And they said, well, God will either save me or I'm going to burn up. But my answer is that's still not going to work for me. The only way to get there is to grow your faith. See, just coming to church don't get you there. See what I'm saying? It takes some time to get there. But if you don't work on your faith in the good times and the drought comes, you already going to be lost. Parents try to teach kids that, right? You got to work now. What do parents talk about with higher education? You need to get yours so that if something happens, you have something to, what do old people say? Fall back on, correct? Why do older people speak like that? Because they live so many decades, they know what it's like when all of a sudden it's up and then inflation hits. All of a sudden, a war comes. All of a sudden, a recession. But when you just in your teens and 20s, you barely seen life yet. Is that not true? So you only remember the time period you're in, but older people have seen life go like this. See? So they're just trying to give advice to say, listen, you don't know when the drought is coming. So you have to prepare yourself spiritually first, because sometimes you'll be emotionally drained, financially drained, physically drained, but you can't be spiritually drained. And that's where we lose most people. That's why we have to apply this chapter to our lives. We don't know when the drought is coming or how long it's going to last. Therefore, we have to find a way to maneuver through the world that we live in. Now, today, these types of lessons are applicable because the first thing people are going to think of is the pandemic. This is just seems like how it's going to be. We don't know how long. Therefore, I have to find a way to maneuver me, because it seems like the world is moving on, correct? I can assure you your government is moving on. So whether you want to move on or not, schools are moving on, restaurants are moving on. Let me help you. The world is moving on. So much so Putin was like, let's have a war. You don't think somebody say, well, bro, it's a COVID. Probably not a good idea to fight it. What'd he say? They be all right. Go see COVID numbers down. Go get another country. The world is moving on. So what does that mean for Ellis? Well, I could either stay here or I'm going to have to keep it moving because the world is leaving me. See my point? Therefore, I have to navigate in this world. I have to find a way to make sure that my spiritualness is increasing, not staying the same or decreasing just because of my physical surroundings. That's in any phase of life, good times or bad times. And when something bad happens, I should remember the miracle of getting food every day in a drought to say, even though this is dire circumstances like the death of a child, I still will not waver in my faith, because if God was able to feed me miraculous every day, God is able to do exceedingly and abundantly more than what I ever even can ask. See what I'm saying? Now, her faith was increased, but also who else's faith? Elijah. Because Elijah felt some way too. He felt, yeah, this kind of looked bad. Did you bring me here to inflict pain on this lady? Like, help her. And 3 times he praying out. And God heard and said, revive this child. Child came back. He brought the child back to the mother excited. The Bible got an exclamation point. Look, this is your son. So this is a wholesome story that we should tap into to think, okay, you know what? What are the ways in my life where I need to increase my faith? Right? You know the story at the bottom of the Transfiguration Mountain. They come down. Jesus took a couple of disciples up with them. He left the rest. They come down. There's commotion. Right? First person in charge say, what? What's going on? Guy said, these people you left, no offense, they can't even do half the miracles you can do. I thought you said you had some people with you. They can't even cast out a couple of demons I was trying to get them to cast out. And Jesus's response was general. He a little bit. And what was the guy's response? Well, I believe. I never would have came here if I didn't believe. I need help with the part of my unbelief. That's called an inventory. There's things in the Bible that you don't believe. You should pray about those things. The things you believe in, pray that you become stronger in. But it seemed like as long as her son was alive, she was good money. But when her son died, it changed, right? That's when she was like, okay, now we got problems. See what I'm saying? That's what, remember, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, it sounds like that they weren't where this lady was. Because even when death was presented, they still said, I believe, so I'm good. The only reason they were there was because they built up a cachet of faith experiences. See, sometimes we miss opportunities throughout the week, not even our life, but the week, to build up a cachet of faith experiences so that when bad things happen, we have something to spiritually fall back on, like higher education. See? But if I don't remember the Bible verses and something bad happens, what do I have to fall back on? Nothing. And then I lean on my own understanding. See what we're saying? So make sure that you don't just treat this lesson as, oh, this sounds some mystical thing. Make sure you do the proper application. All right, let's have our comments. Brother Kirk, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that, this is, to me, this story hits me and reminds me very deeply about just faith and obedience. I think that there are so many levels of faith and obedience as displayed here. Even with just Elijah going to the brook, like you were saying, like, there were so many different things that the Lord asked him to do that didn't really seem to make natural sense. So then again, even from the brook to go into the widow, again, none of that really made sense. But even the obedience of the widow, she could have just kind of denied him, right? Because she was this random person, like, asking me for my last, right? And how often are we in that position, right? Like, we come across a random person who may be in greater need than us, asking us for our last. And I also tie this into, in the New Testament, when Jesus talks about, feeding the hungry and clothing the naked and sheltering the homeless. It's like, when you come across people in need, our initial reaction is to, especially in a drought, right?
Yeah.
In a drought, our initial reaction is to just preserve what we have. But her obedience is very, like, commendable, because even in her limitedness, like, or her limitedness, or whatever that word is, in her limitations, she was still able to give and be blessed. So yeah, I think this is a really powerful reminder to me. And then it's a foreshadow for Elisha, who also has similar experiences where, again, I think in the Bible, when you see a thing like 2 or more times, is just a really great sign of, the Lord trying to show us something deep. So yeah, I think that this is really good about faith and obedience, and a reminder to me of how to live those things out.
Good, Sister Erica.
3 things really quickly. So the first is, it's interesting because this story is such an underpin to how we will learn who Jesus is. And it's interesting to me because there was always the idea that, oh, Jesus was Elijah, right? And you can see even in this story why the Israelites would have thought that Jesus was just the remanifestation, right? Because you look at the audience and whom he's talking to, a widow, a woman, a marginalized person. What is the miracle, right? There's miracles around food, but then there's also miracles around the resurrection of the dead. And so in a lot of ways, I think we sometimes in our modern day assessment of the folks that were interacting with Jesus, we can look down on them, but it would make sense as to why they would have thought Jesus was Elijah based on even just this story. The other thing I want to note, though, I obviously love this story just because I think from the woman's perspective, there's so much here. And in verse 12, it says, so she said, as the Lord your God lives. Elijah traveled about 90 miles to get to her. she would not have been as familiar with God, the prophets, or the people of Israel as he was. And so the miracles then are so significant because there really is no person that God does not want to reach. And I love that about him. And again, her circumstances of lack of resource are not necessarily as connected to the drought as they are her circumstance. She's a widow, so there's no one providing for her, which is why she would have held on to her son the way that she did, not only because she loves him as a mother, but that would have become a lifeline to her as he grew. And so this is Elijah's God, not necessarily her God, but what a beautiful evolution in the story, in that as we get to the end of the chapter, she now knows exactly who God is. So her belief and her faith has shifted. And then the other thing that I want to note really quickly is from verse 7 to 8, we're not quite sure the passage of time, right? Scripturally, it doesn't really say. So
many days.
I don't know what that means. And I think the lesson and application for us today is there are brooks around us always drying up. Your job, a relationship. So I look at the future, again, the future scriptures, and even like Jesus, we often cannot put ourselves in a situation to grow our faith, only because we're not even clear about where we have unbelief. God has to do that. And he pushes us to the limit. This story reminds me so much of Abraham and Isaac, just to the brink. And sometimes I'm like, Lord God, these folks could have been insane, like mentally unstable from the trauma of the circumstance. So I think as we kind of walk out of this Bible study, it would be great for us to personally assess, like, where are the things in my life drying up? Because it's there that God will initiate an experience, an encounter, a new relationship. This is a new relationship for him because, again, he's on the run from another type of woman. And we can get into a whole nother story about how these women are different. But there are things in our lives that are just not clicking forward. And I think if we take a second look, we can analyze what the Lord is really trying to teach us in our faith, because sometimes this is no longer your place of sustenance, but we will stay there month after month, there's some of us at jobs where God was like, I've been wanted you off that, but we don't have the faith to go the 90 miles or that extra mile or apply to a new place. He may be drawing up a relationship. He may be drawing up a friendship. He may be drawing up even a ministry and saying, I have something bigger, but it's going to start with a morsel. And if we don't have, to Kirk's point, the obedience, but also the blind faith in God, we will miss not only our blessing, but we'll miss blessing someone else. And that's also why Elijah was there.
Yeah, good. For the brothers that are on today, if you can now go to room 4, do your prayer, and we'll wrap up here if you don't mind, the brothers that are on. Sister Karen, go ahead. Yeah, all our brothers, if you're on, if you could go to room 4, have your prayer, and then we'll wrap up in a second. Go ahead, Sister Karen.
So while we're breaking it down, and thanks for breaking it down so clearly, because you wrote down every single verse to let us, and thanks for the analogy about parents, about jobs, because it makes it more real and makes sense, makes it more applicable to us, right? So thanks for doing that. But I was just thinking that the widow's point of view, my son, in her head, my son is dying. So her son is supposed to die. Then her son doesn't die.
Yeah.
Then God blesses her, right? And then her son still dies.
Yeah, still dies.
So it's like, what on earth is going on? So I'm here looking at it like God uses everything as a teachable moment, right? Finds every way to display a miracle, to teach us or something. So what I got from that is, as much as God is blessing you and good things are happening because of sin, because of Adam and Eve, life is still hard and bad things are still going to happen. Yep. Because this was the only story where that son should not have died. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because he was already going to die.
Yeah, he was already on his last meal.
He was supposed to be dead already, right? So why would he die? I mean, eventually he still dies. Let's say can die, so she still loses it. So it's like it just so real, because bad things happen all the time, and we wonder why, how. God, you've been so good to us, but it's life.
Yeah.
It's all part of
It's
our
life.
realistic life.
Yep.
And also, God's timing is not our timing. Look what happened to Lazarus. He could have saved Lazarus. He could have saved Jairus' daughter,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But he didn't. He allowed them to die.
Mhm.
So what I'm saying is that Elijah was there when this boy died. Elijah being there should have stopped that boy from dying, from our human
Yeah.
point of
Point
view,
of view.
right?
Yep.
But it didn't. Why? Because another teachable moment, another building of your faith, another I am God, I am the all-powerful here. You don't have control over death.
Mhm.
So you think that your child was going to die from not eating. Guess what? No. Your child is going to get sick and die. How about that?
Yep.
So we think we have control over all this stuff.
Yeah,
We don't.
You don't.
And that's the problem we have today. And the sad thing is, it just proves again how difficult life is, because she's a widow. She has no one taking care of her.
Nobody.
The church is supposed to take care of the widows, right?
Mhm.
Right? And the fatherless, right?
Yep.
So she has no one taking care of her, and she has a child. So if you think about it, how difficult her life must have been.
Mhm.
And yet God, I mean, not God made it, because I don't think God made the son die. But bad things just get to happen to her. Even with the man of God in my
the
house,
house, yep.
bad things are still happening to me. So
Mhm.
even though I got food, so also the whole thing about food is not everything.
Mhm.
You know, what you were talking about, all this food that you were talking about, I'm
Mhm.
just like you. I don't eat everything. I'm not gonna eat that bread.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna eat that cake. It's not gonna
Mhm.
happen. I prefer to die than to eat that cake. I'm not
Mhm.
eating it. It's not happening. It's not gonna go down my throat. Because you know the state is gonna taste like paper, right?
Mhm.
So it's not gonna happen. So at the end of the day, we focus so much on so many things that are not important.
Yeah.
You know, because her focus was food. Right? Her focus was food. I need to feed my child. My child and I are gonna eat our last meal, and then we're gonna die.
Mhm.
There was more to life. She didn't know.
Yeah.
That, and as Erica said, many, we don't know what many is. It could have been years. We don't know, right? Because Bible time is different from our time.
Mhm.
But what I'm saying is that God again shows us again, I am God, I'm all powerful, I'm in control of life and death. I will tell you when you're gonna die, and I'm gonna show you how I work.
Yep.
And it could be bad, it could be good. Guess what? Glory to God.
Yep.
At the end of the day, regardless.
Good. Very good. Thank you for those last three comments. Those of you who are joining us online, we appreciate you. The brothers are going to end the stream now. We're going to start our worship service. Those who are here, thank you for your attendance. Again, thank you for your participation.